It's Angela from Stamp with Angela. Welcome to my Facebook Live today. It's great to have you here. Appreciate you watching, whether you're watching live or the recording later or watching it on YouTube. Today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my favorite techniques, one of the earlier techniques that I learnt, and I still love doing it today. I've been doing card making with Stampin' Up for over 10 years now, and this is still one technique that I really enjoy doing and do quite often. So that is heat embossing. When I started stamping, obviously did a little bit of stamping with inks and stamps, but then this took it sort of to the next level, and just the image or the sentiment or something that you're stamping looks really cool when you heat emboss it, and it just kind of really shines and lifts out. So for some of you, you may have tried this technique before and do it a lot. For others, it might be new, so I'll show you how it's done. In the early days, I didn't have a heat tool, and so it doesn't work with a hairdryer because that's just a bit too powerful and it will blow all the embossing powder away. So I used an old toaster, and I used to hold the emboss piece above it and let the heat from that melt the embossing powder. So I wouldn't recommend that, but that is, you know, one way that I used to do it when I got started. And then obviously, you know, I got a heat tool, which makes life a little bit easier. So it's a fun technique to try. So I'll share with you heat embossing today, and I'm going to use the Dainty Delight bundle, or in particular the stamp set, which is in the mini catalogue, and share with you today's card. So I hope you enjoy it. If you've got any questions, please ask, and I'll do my best to answer during the video, or if you're watching later, I'll reply to your questions later on. So thank you for watching me today, and let's get started. So this card here, the colour, can anyone guess the colour? I know it might be a little bit harder to figure out in person than on a, it'll be harder in a video than in person. But the colour is Orchid Oasis, which is one of the in colours, which I really like. So it's predominantly that with a little bit of white. So this here is the heat embossing that I've done with this image. It's lovely coloured in things, but it looks quite striking in the white against the colour. And I've also embossed the sentiment as well. So this, so the dies that I've used are the deckled rectangle dies, which I will show you. I've used them a wee bit before, but it just makes, you know, an interesting pattern on, and if you don't have those, well, you could just cut out a rectangle shape. So this is the dies here in a variety of sizes. So I've used the second to largest, so that's for the white, and then that's for the next layer. And this is a tip too. What I do is when I get them, I photocopy the dies, and then I put a magnetic sheet down and then the photocopy on the top, and then all the dies stick to it so they don't, well, when they're flat, I'm trying to line them all up now, they will stay and not come off. And then also I'll know if any are missing, which is quite handy. It's kind of obvious with something like this because they sort of nestle into each other, but with other stamps, when there's lots of little bits, if you have a template behind or draw around them or something, you know what's there. So that's quite a useful idea of using the magnetic sheets. And the magnetic sheets aren't from Stampin' Up, they're just something I get from like the $2 shop, something like that. All right, so I've got the two rectangle deckled dies, or deckled rectangle dies. So that's what I've used, but you could use the stitched rectangles, or, you know, or just cut it if you needed to. Now I've used in the background, I have embossed. Again, I don't know how easy that is to see. You could choose an embossing folder that you like. So this is the brick and mortar one. So this one here again, I don't know how well you can see. So when you put it in, although you must put it in your machine this way with the closed end first, because of the pattern, my cardstock's actually going to go that way because my card is going to sit like that. Okay, so I've already done that. emboss the background. So this idea here is something I saw online. It was inspired by something by Brian King, who used the deckled dies and the embossing. He used DSP, but I quite like the idea of using a textured background and embossing. So I've got some ideas from him and then created my own card as well. So this is pretty straightforward. So I've got my standard card base, which is here, and I'm just going to adhere this straight on. So this card is 14.85 by 21 centimeters, scored at 10.5. And then my piece that is going on is just going to be a little bit smaller, 10 centimeters by 14.3. And we're just going to glue this directly on the front. I did wonder about ribbon and things, and I tried it, but then I just kind of felt actually it was enough on its own. So if you were going to add any ribbon around, then you'd probably want to do it now if you're going to need to adhere it behind. Okay, so that's our back piece at the back. So let's do our embossing. So this is the technique that I really like. So I've already cut this. So this is my piece here. And then I'm going to do a little thank you just on a scrap piece as well. And to cut that out, I have used the double oval punch. Whoops, I've got a few extra bits on it for the two-tone. I like the way it frames it, as it were. But you could, you know, cut a rectangle out or even use the deckled shapes or something like that. All right, so when you are heat embossing, you need a few things. So you need Versamark ink, which is like a clear ink that the powder will stick to. You need the embossing powder. In this case, I've got white. And then you need a heat tool. Okay. And an extra thing, which is quite useful and I do like to use, is the embossing buddy. So those items you can purchase. With the white comes with a pack of 3. You get clear, black and white, or you can get metallics like gold, copper, silver, that kind of thing. So they're in packs of 3. And there's a lot in there and it lasts for quite a while. So the reason I like using the embossing buddy is before I stamp, I wipe it over the card that I'm doing, and that gets rid of any static, because sometimes the bits stick where you don't want it to, which is kind of a little bit frustrating. But whoops, oh, I didn't want to crease that. But by rubbing the embossing body over, it helps get rid of all those static images and things. All right, so what we're going to do is stamp this on here. It's quite a big stamp, so I'm actually going to put the Versamark over the top like this. Okay, it's just a clear ink pad, and you can re-ink them too. And I'm going to do it kind of slightly more to the left and press down. So it's quite a long stamp. I don't want to rock it, otherwise we'll get lines from the edge of the stamp, but push it well. And you could always do this in your Stamparatus. So I don't know how well you can see that, but it's like a little bit of, makes the cardstock a little bit darker. Now I want to move fairly quickly because this will dry and I don't want it to, you know, dry out. So if you buy the embossing buddy, you can get this little tray, and that way when you sprinkle it on, it collects into the tray. And then you collect it all up. So with a brush or your finger, if there are any excess ones, you can just wipe it, or you could just do a little flick, flick, and that often helps get rid of the extra bits if they do stick on. And if you've missed a bit, like you think, oh, I didn't quite get there, if need be, you can just sprinkle a little bit on. Oh, there we go, make sure it's right. And then tidy it up kind of thing. So add a bit more. So once this is on, you don't have to emboss it straight away. You can leave it because the ink's got the powder on it, but you know, don't leave it too long. The problem with leaving it is if you knock it, you're going to brush the powder off. So the best thing is to move quite quickly and start embossing it. I will just stamp my thank you. Now, if you don't have one of these, something else you can do, where is my thank you? I like making thank you cards because then I can send them to my customers. So thank you in the middle, there we go, and sprinkle it on. Now if you don't have the tray, because later on I'll undo that and pour it back in, just get a scrap piece of paper, put it underneath and pour it on. tap it again. Didn't quite get the U there, it didn't need quite that much. Flick, flick. And then just tip it back in, okay, because you can just keep reusing it. And then put the lid on. And then with this one, I will unscrew it and do that, but I'll do that later. So let's just put that there for the moment, just for the sake of time. All right, so I have got my thank you and my flowers, and I'm going to cover up my ink so it doesn't dry up. And there will be a little bit of noise, sorry, but you watch as the colour changes on it. So it's got 2 settings. I'm putting it on 2 for heat embossing. If you buy the embossing kit, which has got that tray, it also includes some tweezers and a little brush too that you can brush bits out. So can you see that it is now getting a brighter white? So if I stop there, you can see the thank you has melted, but the U is yet to be done. So we'll carry on. Hope this isn't too noisy for you. All right, I'm going to put that aside. Don't want to do it too much because you don't want to burn the paper either. And then we're going to do our flowers. So watch this as it sets or heats, melts, and look at that. Isn't that cool? Can you see? Oops, didn't quite do the end there. So this is what I love, watching it change colour like this. And it looks really cool, and gold or silver or black or even clear can look quite effective too. Right, I'm just going to turn it around. So do enough, but not too much, because you don't want to burn the card. So make sure. So if you look at that, if you look very closely, there's that little bit there that hasn't quite set, so we just make sure we do that. And then there too. There we go. All right, isn't that cool? So that is what heat embossing is. So start with the Versamark. Well, actually, no, start with the embossing buddy. Versamark, stamp it, put on your powder, and then brush off any extra or tap it off and then heat it like that. That is so cool. Now with this one, the minute you finish, I wouldn't put it through a punch and things because it's a little bit soft still and could smudge slightly, but it doesn't take too long to dry. So what we're going to do now is we're going to adhere this onto the slightly bigger rectangle, and we're going to cut that out as well. So I'm just going to glue these 2 together, and then here we go, and then I'm going to put dimensionals on this because this one is lifted up. I don't know if you can tell. So we'll get our dimensionals, we'll do the 4 corners and the middle, because then it sort of won't sag in the middle. So for those who've been watching me before, and the highlighter means I know that it's not off yet, so I don't have to keep touching it to see if it's sticky or not. All right, so we're going to put that on there like that. There we go. So we can see the pattern of the embossing folder behind, and I think it's slightly wonky. Let's just adjust it slightly, maybe a little bit to the left. Whoops. Can we do that without wrecking the card? Just ever so slightly. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Okay, so nearly done. We just need our sentiment here and some bling, obviously. So with our double punch, I'm going to cut out the thank you. I've gone with the same colour theme in the sense that the stamping is on the colour and then the white is framing it, but you could always do the opposite too, and I'll show you another card afterwards like that. So I'm just going to glue this on. I mean, you could just do that, but it would get a little bit lost. At least the white sort of helps it to stand out. So I've put that on with dimensionals as well. Just The good thing with the glue is you can just slide it and adjust it slightly. Another dimensional. And there we go. And then some bling. So you're probably used to me using these. These are kind of my favorite at the moment. They're iridescent rhinestone jewels, because they sort of pick up whatever color you've got. So I've got kind of a big, a medium. So 3 odd numbers are good. So I'm doing 2 up there, and I'm using my take your pick tool to lift it up, and we'll do 1 over there like so. And with this card I did put a piece inside. You could stamp on it too if you wanted, obviously not in the white because it is on white, but I guess you could stamp it in the color of the card, and just, even if it was just down the bottom, I've only just kind of thought of that now. But that is the card, and that is the heat embossing technique. So let me show you a couple of other cards that I made doing the same kind of thing. So I started off using designer series paper. So the paper I've used is the paper that goes with this set for celebration. It's the Dainty, well, it's actually Dainty Flowers, I believe. So this is in Blushing Bride, and this is in Fresh Freesia. So this is a little bit more similar to what someone did using the designer series paper. I've enjoyed sharing one of my favorite stamping techniques, which is heat embossing. And so I hope you've learnt a few tips and things along the way. So yes, thank you very much. If you've got any questions, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care. Bye.